Hello, everybody, and welcome into Commodity Culture, where we dive into commodities markets, sound money principles, and geopolitics, all with the goal of making you a better investor in the commodities sector. My name is Jesse Day, and on this episode, I'm thrilled to welcome Ian Everard to the program, the owner of ARC Silver, Gold, Osmium, and an enthusiast and analyst in the precious metal space. Ian believes we are entering a mass extinction event for physical silver, as shortages rock the market and the metal starts to become unobtanium, a dynamic that could cause a massive price spike beyond what most are expecting. Will there come a time when it's too late to pile in, as the retail crowd desperately chases silver, and how will that affect the market dynamics? We also dive into gold's incredible rise and what it means for the global economy and monetary system, why an obscure metal called Rhenium is about to go into a face-melting rally, and so much more, so strap yourselves in for my conversation with Ian Everard. Ian Everard, great to have you back on Commodity Culture. Last time I had you on the show, you questioned whether the gold bull run was a distraction, and you speculated that silver was actually the metal that people should be paying attention to. And that has certainly played out, with silver up around 82% year to date, compared to around 60% for gold, a gap that has really started to grow recently, although both metals continue to rip to new all-time highs. Let's hone in on silver first, though. What are your thoughts on silver's dramatic rise? I think we're getting close to $54 as of the time of this recording. And do you think we'll see continued outperformance of silver over gold from here?
I'm hoping we'll get a pause and the ratio will stabilize around 80 to 1 just to get people used to that. Whether we get the luxury of a pause, I mean, yes, as we speak, we're 10 cents off $54 on silver, and the ratio is pretty well around 80 to 1. But I think all the fundamentals are still driving silver even harder than gold.
And in terms of silver shortages, this is another story that has been coming up, particularly when it comes to the LBMA. There's been reports that they have zero free float of silver inventory at the moment, and this is a big factor in terms of driving prices higher. I was speaking to Mario Ineco and Eric Young the other day, and they were saying that it's going to take something like 500 plane loads worth of silver to deliver to the LBMA before it can start operating again. I wonder what your view is on that. Have you heard anything regarding silver shortages at the LBMA and any potential implications you think that could have on the silver market?
Yeah, I mean, there's two views. There's the sort of total line view. I watch, I think it's called Gold Core, really smart lady on that. And she thinks, no, everything's fine. It'll all get smoothed out. I'm not so sure. I mean, there's information. You look at what the refiners are doing or not doing. They're not taking sterling silver. They're not taking 90% constitutional silver. They're just concentrating on using 3.9 or 4.9 silver and turning it into 1,000-ounce bars, or to mine concentrate and doré. I think they're under some pressure, or great pressure, to keep cranking out the 1,000-ounce bars to try and keep filling the exchange for physical requirement. And that seems to be every time we get a big surge, there's a surge in people standing for physical instead of dollars. And it's a risk reward choice. And I think the more people who've actually know, I'll stand for physical, I'll take the physical now, it's worked out for them time and time again, because then the current price jumps up. Whereas I think, are we still at 48 for the year-end futures? It's a ridiculous difference between the live reality and what you may be able to. Well, you could pay for your silver in the future now, but whether you'll get it or not. So I think that is a fascinating figure. You said 50 plane loads of silver.
500, I believe, is the statistics that Eric Young told me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you think 2 weeks ago, the best calculations was the LBMA had 6 weeks left of free float that was presumed to be available. So obviously, they're fudging the figures. Whatever silver there, I think it's owned multiple times, or it's been leased, shipped out. The leasee has sold it, presuming they can make out like a bandit in AI or crypto with the dollars, and then come back in and make a profit that way, and they've got burnt. Whereas pretty well all other assets are falling, silver's going up. So the squeeze, if anybody, well, we know that people are doing that and have been doing that. It's worked really well for them. They're really getting punished now, because until they can actually get hold of the physical silver, they can't turn their exposure off. We are seeing incredibly high prices for silver in Britain. I track it, being a Brit, ex-Brit stroke American. I don't know. I think I'm a bit of both. I mean, silver Britannias.
Yeah.
These are $75
wow.
each.
75 US dollars.
In the UK. The equivalent $75 US. Now, yes, you've got purchase tax factor into that, but that's a reality for the stacker on the ground. If they want to buy a new Britannia, $75. Whereas here they're 54 plus 4, they're $58 here. But people are still buying them, and we've seen stories in Poland that dealers are offering $6 over spot for any sovereign coin, just so they can get some stock. So we've got just a little lag here, a little luxury, but already we're seeing, maybe we should title this interview a mass extinction event.
I like it. Silver's mass extinction event. I love that. Yeah.
Mass extinction event. These are extinct. I cannot get any more of these
really?
Beautiful 100-ounce 4.9 fine Royal Canadian Mint bars. Gone. Valcambi kilos. Gone. Extinct.
Wow.
Maples. Extinct. Out of stock. Platinum Eagles. Extinct. Unavailable. It goes on and on. Palladium. Any form of palladium. There is 0 available. Platinum, extinct. The only platinum I can get is 1/10 ounce Britannias. This is unusual because it's across the metals now. Gold Canadian maples. We could add gold extinct. Can't get them. If the public wake up and people who've been thinking of buying choose to buy, give it a day or two, there's not going to be anything left.
Well, that's what's being discussed by a lot of stackers. I believe Mike Maloney coined the term that silver will one day be unobtanium. I wonder if we're entering that era because, as you said, we've seen the videos online of lineups down the block at, I believe it's ABC Bullion in Australia. Costco has entered the game. Walmart, some of these big box retailers started to sell physical gold and silver as well. And the public consciousness is starting to catch on. And if we know how most of that herd mentality works, it's a number goes up, and that's when people start to dive in and pay attention because the FOMO starts to kick in and they say, oh my God, silver is $50, but what if it goes to 100 because look at what gold's doing. Do you anticipate a point in time, you kind of alluded to it there, where the retail crowd wants to pile in and there's just nothing available? And what would that do to prices ultimately?
Premiums will just go vertical. We'll be back to $16 premiums on Eagles. I mean, again, there's one thing I didn't mention on that list of extinctions. 2025 silver Eagles. That's my last tube. Extinct.
Wow.
So yeah, premiums are going to rise. They are rising. We've seen $1 to $2 premium increases. So yeah, unfortunately, the retail market is so small in dollar terms compared to the amount of people got in their savings accounts, money markets, even SLV, PSLV. We've got a lot of clients who, do you know what? I'm getting out of Dodge. I do not want my metal in a theoretical fund. And I know the PSLV is supposed to be one of the best, and that whole setup, they buy the silver before they issue more shares. They do it the right way. But where's it stored? In the Royal Canadian Mint. Who owns the Royal Canadian Mint? Probably. I can show you a picture. I won't say the words. I think he owns the Royal Canadian Mint. So, counterparty risk. We're seeing crazy stuff worldwide now. We've got wars breaking out. The US, we are creating wars. It looks like we want to regime change in Venezuela. Looks like we're aiding and abetting Pakistan to invade Afghanistan. It's just on and on and on. So we've got all these border conflicts. We could wake up tomorrow, and is it Maria Sheinbaum, the Mexican president? She could say, do you know what? Silver's going up so fast, I think we'll just keep it for a bit and we'll see where it lands before we start selling it again. I mean, if they did that, silver would be $300, $400, $500 next week.
Very fascinating times for the metal. I wonder what your thoughts are here on the industrial component, because that's obviously one of the things that makes silver unique. Do you think the main driver of this current run, part of it could be the industrial side because of how vital it is for so many industrial purposes, every sort of electronics, solar panels, we know the whole story?
Absolutely spot on. You look at China's plan for solar, the way they're ramping up solar, they're going to be nearly reaching a requirement of 400 million ounces of silver a year. It's like, and when China decides it's going to do something from the CCP, from Z down, it tends to get done, or the people that say, no, you can't do it, die, so they have every motivation to make it happen. What that is causing the price of silver to do is we've got that difference in the Shanghai. I don't know if it's correct. I'm sure people can check it if you go to the Shanghai Gold Exchange. We've got a great difference against the Chinese spot for silver than the US spot. That arbitrage is going to get filled. Traditionally wholesalers can work on a 10 or 15 cents margin per ounce. If you can make $4, $5, $6 by getting the silver to China, people are going to find a way. So I think China is sucking up huge amounts of silver. So, and then you add the military industrial complex in the US, the amount of silver, no real transparent figures on what the military is using. But any high-tech military equipment will have silver wires, it'll have silver heat sinks, it'll have silver alloys, even the superstructure, the airframes could well be silver aluminum alloy, just on and on. And there's talk even of silver iron jet engines or propulsion systems. So I don't think the industrial demand eases up now, even as we enter a global recession. And then there's the pretty quick, maybe a year into a recession, zinc, copper, and lead mining will be reduced to some extent. That's where 70-80% of the silver comes from as a byproduct. So you've got a perfect storm there in the supply and demand uses. And a lot of these industrial uses are high value uses. So they're not that sensitive to the price. So in the normal dynamics, as the cost of something goes up, the demand drops. So the available supply increases, so the price corrects. I don't think we're going to see that in silver now. And then you add in people waking up. We've got a lot of first-time buyers who've been known the lie of the dollar, but it's been working really well for them for decades. Now some of them are thinking, do you know what? I need to put $1 million or $2 million into something real. It really doesn't take many of those across the industry, and silver's gone.
Yeah. Now, I think a question a lot of stackers out there have, or people who are new to gold and silver and have realized, okay, the fiat currency system isn't working. Clearly, this is a long-term trend. I want to get my hands on some physical silver. But obviously, a lot of people have an aversion to buying something that's ripping to new all-time highs. Do you think this is a time to proceed with caution, or is the greater fear to be sitting on the sidelines hoping for a dip only to see silver skyrocket out of reach?
I think, and on previous history, when we've had pretty rapid moves, if we do get a pullback, the increase in premiums will wipe that out. So you'll still pay as much per ounce. There's going to be distortions to that as secondary market comes on. I know some coin shops, I got contacts with some coin shops in Utah. I know they've been swamped with people selling product. So temporarily, some coin shops will be selling at spot or below spot just to keep their cash flow. Most banks are not interested in lending to the bullion industry. Why, I don't know. Well, I do know, but I'm not going to say it. Don't want to upset my bank. So, yeah, scary, all-time high. Yeah, no, I had this when we broke to the mid-30s last year. I remember one day I placed an order at $36 something spot. That day, I was the only customer of one of the largest wholesalers in the US that bought silver. Everyone else was holding back. No, this is going to pull back. Why buy it and hedge and do all of that? I'll wait. And it didn't pull back. So, yeah, fear of missing out. Not a good reason, because if it's a FOMO, it means you're over emotional about the decision. It's going to be a short-term decision. And then if it does pull back a little bit, you think you're going to dump this and move on to the next shiny thing. And so that's not for you.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think people have to ask themselves the question, are you buying physical gold and silver to remove your wealth from the financial system, to take it out of counterparty risk, to use it as a store of value, a hedge against all of the things that traditional stackers, you have to understand the asset class before you pile into it, right?
Exactly. To do it on although you could have done really well on a momentum trade, if you got a good deal over a small spread, you could have been making 10% a week. And another one final thing is it's the privacy.
Yes.
Depending on the size of your purchase and depending who you purchase it from and how you purchase it, can be a private transaction that is not declarable. That could be the most valuable aspect of owning precious metals. I cannot see how the US can go forward without more financial repression and more taxation. Now, the lie might be, oh, yes, corporation tax is low and the billionaires are paying less tax. Yes, that's true. But what about the rest of us? We will be paying more tax one way or the other. Silver in a lot of states now is voluntary legal tender. How that plays out into sales tax, I don't know. I'm having a discussion here where we live in rural Idaho. We get our tax dollars are sucked up and go to Boise, 4.5 hours away, where we never see them again. Well, what would happen if we introduced a local currency, physical metal? What would that tax? How do you charge sales tax on that? Do you clip a little bit off the coin? It's like... So we may be able to develop legal ways of using silver in a local community that are sales tax exempt, federal tax exempt, and private. I think a lot of people, smart people, will be pushing forward with that. Obviously, there's already the informal economy. I am aware of transactions happening that are fully private.
When it comes to the gold market, now we're seeing gold look like it's going to potentially hit $5,000. I think that's a very realistic price target at this point. The interesting thing is, with the speed that gold is rising, I've spoken to a lot of guests on this show who have said, yeah, I'd love gold to go up, but it's a scary world that we'll be living in when gold gets to, the previous number was 5,000. Only a year ago, a lot of people were saying that. I think it's going to hit that.
Yeah.
What is gold's rapid rise telling us about the global economy, our monetary system, and what are the risks here? Is the risk that we could see a collapse of fiat currencies worldwide? Because obviously that's the end game that some stackers talk about. Could we be facing that in the near term future?
I think we're seeing it real time. I think we're actually seeing the accounting for the currency debasement. The up-to-date figures a few weeks ago was worldwide we now have 80 times more currency than we had in 1980. So if you take the lowest price of gold in 1980 and multiply it by 80, that's the sort of minimum we're going to go to. I don't know what was the lowest price. It was in quite a few $100s. So that is what precious metals have done throughout history. They give a thorough accounting, absolute thorough, precise accounting for currency debasement. So we are in the midst of a fiat currency collapse.
That's a scary proposition. Now, on the other side of that, how do you expect things to play out? That's a tough question, I know, because nobody can really foresee the future. How will governments react? I think we're already seeing some of that in terms of governments trying to clamp down, gain more control over citizens, start wars abroad to distract people. I think the Venezuela story has a lot to do with oil in an effort to perhaps prevent runaway inflation in energy, which is a major input into the global economy and people's everyday lives. How do you think that would play out, and how do you expect governments to react?
I think it is playing out. I mean, you've got mass surveillance in the US, completely illegal. And to a certain extent, it's even been boasted about. There was a recent event, I won't say which event, people can do a bit of research or give me a call, I'll tell them what the event was, where somebody boasted that 270,000 cell phones were tracked. So the whole area where these people were was geo-fenced. Now, as far as I'm aware, there's only one country in the world that got the technology to do that, and it's not the US. So a foreign country geo-fenced and tracked 270,000 cell phones at a recent event without their permission, without their consent. Now, we have a constitution here. Now, it might not expressly say about cell phones, because obviously they weren't a thing when the constitution was written. But there's certain things about privacy, freedom of movement, not to be stopped, not to have your goods even looked at, let alone, So we're in the midst of it. And what, I mean, anybody's got half a brain. What do you think the Doge team was actually doing? They were collecting all of the data from all of the agencies. It was nothing about efficiency. It was getting full access to the full computer records. Where did they take them? Palantir. Who's Palantir? They are the private, quasi-private government entity that manages all of the US government data now and has access to all US government data. If that doesn't make you concerned, go back to sleep. It's like, and if we think you can get another passport and fly to another country and avoid all of this, no. This is a worldwide thing that is happening. We are heading towards one world government, one world currency, one world army, one world police force, one world legal system. There will be nowhere to run. So all we can do, and I say all, it's a huge thing, is form our own parallel survival system, which for me is precious metals, firewood, food, energy. That's the best we can do. Make ourselves as resilient as possible, because this is an onslaught. It does not stop.
And interestingly, Peter Thiel, co-founder of Palantir, has given multiple presentations on the Antichrist. This is very bizarre. He has this kind of obsession with the Antichrist. And a lot of people are pointing out, you're a very interesting representation of what could be the Antichrist. You're the one trying to warn us. It's almost like, the greatest trick the devil pulled was convincing us he didn't exist. It feels like perhaps a little bit of that is coming. Guys, careful of the Antichrist. It's totally not me, guys. It's just, but be careful. He's coming, It's like, wow, very, very fascinating stuff.
Recently, and again, talking about distractions, I think Bitcoin has been a distraction.
Okay. Tell us about that.
I plotted this out this morning. I don't know how well this will show up. So that is Bitcoin gold ratio.
Yeah.
So we peaked in 2021, towards just the end of 21. That was the highest ratio of how much gold you needed to get one Bitcoin. I'm predicting now Bitcoin will never recover against gold. It will never get up to that 37 to 1 ratio again. Gold will keep going up faster. Now you're going to get the volatility in Bitcoin, and you'll get the hysteria. I mean, how many headlines have we seen? Bitcoin reaches all-time high. But no one checked against what? Against gold, it was 4 years ago. It's yesterday's thing. And when people realize that, they're not going to jump into it because the momentum is gone. We're not going to see that. I mean, it rose, you see, from 5.9 all the way up to 37. We're not going to see that again. And I may get a lot of, if you're going to make a mean comment because you love Bitcoin, go ahead. But if you really want a sensible conversation, give me a ring and persuade me otherwise.
Well, I want to pull on the I just want to pull on the crypto thread for a moment because you brought it up. The whole Genius Act, stablecoins. What do you make of that whole situation? There's been some talk that this is a way for the government to somehow debase their own debt obligations and rug pull everybody. How are you viewing this whole push towards stablecoins, particularly coming from the U.S. government at this point?
Well, got to be careful what words I use. How can a stablecoin be stable when it's linked 1-to-1 with a dollar? When the dollar is losing so much purchasing power against the precious metals. Now, if a stablecoin was linked to the price of gold, that's a fair bit more stability, but it's not. It's against the dollar, so it's just garbage. And if you look at the players in the crypto world, I mean, the number 5th stablecoin now is USD1. Well, everybody watching, look up who owns USD1. Look up the track record of that family, their business success. We know where that's going to end. So, yeah, it's a complete distraction. Good luck to the people who've made out like a bandit. But I would suggest to them, cash it in. Take the chips out of the casino and hope you don't get dragged around the back and beaten up and have your winnings stolen off you. It's like, take them out of the casino, put them into something private, because none of this crypto is private. No one has shown me how it is private. Every transaction, every millisecond is recorded, date stamped. So there's no privacy. And I mean, it's, oh, well, I can put it in a cold wallet. So you want to lock it away? Well, it's like you might try to wake up your cold wallet and there is no internet, or the whole system has collapsed. I mean, I've been told by somebody who really does understand all of the plumbing on blockchain that Bitcoin, if enough miners stop mining, the whole thing crashes and it's unrecoverable. So it relies on a core amount of miners mining to keep proving the transactions and keeping the records. Now, I'm sure there'll be counter arguments to that, but is that a risk you want to take, that you can wake up and you know? It's not a risk I'm going to take.
I want to talk about platinum and palladium here because while all eyes are on gold and silver, platinum is actually outperforming both metals. Palladium was as well, but now silver is raced ahead of palladium. Palladium up around 74% year to date. Platinum up a whopping 86% as we're speaking at this moment. What are your thoughts on the run in both metals? And when do you think people are going to wake up and start paying attention to them?
Well, if you look at retail, they have done, because there isn't any available. I mean, I think we've got 8 Platinum Eagles. We've got a few Palladium bars. We've got very little stock. So I think the retail trade has woken up. But that's a tiny amount of the market. And unfortunately, a lot of retail product was destroyed because it had sat not doing anything. It sat on the shelves at the wholesalers, and their accounts department said, melt it, make it go. And a huge amount was destroyed last year. And that inventory will probably never get replaced. Because it's a harder metal to mint, it's more expensive to mint, and their production runs are small, so the cost per item are much higher. It's a dysfunctional in the retail world. Now, I wish Bob Coleman had called me, because he bought, for a fund that he runs, $2 million of platinum when it was $800.
Wow.
But he didn't tell me, Ian, you might want to think about buying some platinum. I'm buying up all of the kilo bars. And he was buying kilo bars. So he's doubled up nicely for his fund. So are they going to keep on going? I would just say keep an eye on that ratio. I think, I don't think it's going to increase dramatically from where it is. So as gold goes up, platinum and palladium will go up. The downside on a retail purchase is the spread is really high. The premium on platinum can be more than 1 ounce of gold, depending on the product, and the timing. So that's a big chunk. But to buy and hold a bit, yeah, I think it's going to keep tracking gold. It is going to do as well as gold does. But silver is still not even started. It's hardly left a starting block. It's not really warmed up yet. That ratio is going to close to 30 to 1. So if you do the math, if it closes 40 to 1, it's going to go twice as fast as gold. And it will be doing that. Say gold goes up 30%, 40% in the next year. Well, silver's going to go up 60 to 80%. I think that's baked in. Because what other option is there for retail? 4,000 to plus 100. We're nearly 4,400 for one of these if you can find one.
Yeah.
Or you can buy 3 tubes of the silver ones. So if you can get the silver, just psychologically, retail are going to get the silver. And a lot of our clients, they'll do $200 orders, $500 orders, 800,000. A lot are not doing $4,000 orders. So to go for fractional gold, where you're paying, 30% premium, that doesn't really make sense. You're better off buying silver with a lower percentage premium and then converting it into gold in the future when you've got enough silver to convert into an ounce. Because the argument is often given, yes, it makes sense buying fractional gold at a high premium because by the time you've got your ounce, the gold has moved up, But it makes more sense to me, use silver as a vehicle to accumulate gold.
Yeah, that's a great strategy, actually. One metal I want to discuss that is not often discussed, but I know that you're involved in, is rhenium. We've had a lot of conversations about it off the record. You also talked about it a little bit last time I had you on the show, but I want to revisit that because not a lot of people are paying attention. Walk us through the investment thesis and why you think rhenium has a promising future.
Yeah, let's just run through the core fundamentals. The supply is pretty well fixed. So it's a byproduct of a byproduct because it's found at such low concentrations. It makes rare earths look really, really common, which they are compared to rhenium. So rare earths are produced in the millions of tons. Rhenium, 50 tons a year as a byproduct from molybdenum from some copper deposits. Yields are falling in certain areas, and we're reliant for nearly half of the world's rhenium production from Chile. By the way, Chile is prone to earthquakes. So if we did get an earthquake that knocked out their production, we lose half of the world's rhenium production. So we got the 50 tons a year from primary extraction as a byproduct of a byproduct. Compare that to silver, that's 1/500th by weight. 1/500th. At the moment, it is trading for, let's just see what the price of silver is in kilos. A kilo of silver is $1,737 for a kilo. A kilo of rhenium in sintered pellet form, pure, 4.9 minimum purity, is 3,600. So it's only just a little bit over twice the price of silver, yet it's 1/500th of the production. And there are no meaningful stockpiles. And we've just had that proved. The US government has accidentally proved that there are no meaningful stockpiles. They issued this, I don't think I'll get into trouble, but don't tell the government. They've issued this out. This is the DLA, Defense Logistics Agency, Strategic Metals Directorate, is seeking information for the potential acquisition of 40 metric tons of rhenium metal for addition into the national defense stockpile. So our amazingly intelligent, smart, cunning US government has shouted out, we need 40 tons, help. If that wasn't bad enough, then they sent a letter out saying, oh, by the way, dear rhenium people, please do it in a way that doesn't make the price of rhenium go up. Well, the first letter made rhenium go up $400 a kilo. Then they send out a letter, we want 25 tons of aminium perrhenate. So that's about equivalent of another 18 tons of rhenium. So now the US government is trying to source nearly 60 tons in a market where there is no slack and there is no stockpiles. It's going to take at least 5 years. And now we know the US government has underbid the whole rhenium market for 5 years. They will buy everything they can for 5 years. Uses. So this is why the US government is trying to secure rhenium. Every jet engine turbine blade has rhenium in. Civilian airplanes, 1.5% rhenium in the alloy. Military, up to 6% in the turbine blades. So about 60, 70% maybe a bit higher of the world's rhenium goes into just that use, into civilian and military aviation. It's also used in numerous high heat applications because only tungsten has a higher melting point. But unlike tungsten, you can crush rhenium and you can stretch it and it keeps its shape. It doesn't break. So that enables the turbines to run hot because of its high melting point, and it also enables the metal to not flow, stretch, crack, or fail, which is pretty crucial in a turbine running at goodness knows how many thousands of revolutions a minute. Those blades cannot fail. So for 40 years we've been using in turbine blades. We cannot find a substitute. We've reduced the amount down to 1.5%, but the aviation is hooked. There is no substitute for rhenium alloys in aviation. Then you have a key use in petroleum refining. So when you refine gasoline, you use a rhenium catalyst to purify, to boost the octane rating to make the higher grades of gasoline. That takes around 20% of the world's rhenium. And have a look how many refineries have been blown up in Russia recently, in Russia, in Ukraine, in Israel, in Iran. There's a whole lot of refineries. That rhenium that was in there is gone. That's never going to get recycled. And even in that loop, every time you recycle it, you lose 10%. So it gets consumed. And then there's other electrical uses, medical uses coming online. It is an incredible metal, only discovered 100 years ago. It's 75 on the periodic table, so it sits between tungsten and the precious metals. It is absolutely fascinating metal. It's denser than gold. As I said, only tungsten has a higher melting point. Incredible hard wearing metal. We're discovering more and more uses. So the case as an investment is the supply is constrained, demand is rising, and all of the uses are high value uses, very high value uses. One of its uses is used so you can use less of this. So platinum is, I think, $55,000 a kilo. So you can mix rhenium in with platinum and it will still have the same characteristics for certain uses. That, as far as I've researched, is the lowest value use of rhenium, so you can use less platinum. So the ceiling on rhenium is in my view, is platinum. Is the price of platinum, whereas it approaches that. But what would happen then is, well, we'd use less rhenium platinum alloy, we'd use more platinum, that would drive the price of platinum up. So therefore the gap would open and we'd start using more rhenium. So the lowest value use will go up, in my opinion. And again, as we talked earlier, I think the platinum is going to track gold as gold rises because of its monetary aspects as well. So the setup is, I would say it's the best setup I've seen in anything ever. That may sound like an exaggeration, but the beauty is you can take physical possession off grid, no shenanigans, no force majeure, on a market, which I think we will see on silver and gold. So it is a diversification, obviously still in the physical, tangible metal world, but its future, I think, is incredible with that tiny 50 tons raw production per year, plus recycling, maybe 80 tons a year. It is tiny. And if you do the math, you multiply 80 times 4, it's a $300 million market. It is tiny. And we cannot build a civilian airplane, a military airplane. We can't build gas turbines. We can't build satellites, space vehicles, high-end electrical equipment. Rhenium oxides have been using in semiconductors. It's incredible properties as an oxide. The medical uses, it's making the most superior medical metals. Rhenium, 47% rhenium, 53% molybdenum alloy. It will not break, it will not wear out, and it is less reactive in the human body than a titanium equivalent. And because of its strength characteristics, it can be a lot smaller. So the pin, rod, plate, screw can be smaller, meaning less invasive surgery and a higher success rate for the surgery. Just that use alone could demand half of the world's rhenium per year. So I just love all of the high value uses which keep on growing. The supply cannot grow, and now investors are taking some out of the market, and we're going to wait till we get a substantial increase before we consider selling some back into the market.
So at the moment, are you selling physical rhenium, or you're waiting?
Yes.
You are. Okay, you're one of the few bullion dealers
Yes.
that actually is selling it, right?
So we sell it by the kilo, half kilo and quarter kilo. We do no price difference for the size. We want to make it available to people on the lower budget. So for as little as $900, you can get a quarter kilo of rhenium. And when you compare that it's just over twice the price of silver, 500 times less production and no meaningful above ground stockpiles. Because I was talking to industry insiders when they got this letter, some just laughed and said they're not even going to reply to it. And the best case is it will take 5 years for the US government to source what they're looking for. And that is just brilliant, underpinning the investment market, a bid by the government, the greatest producer of funny money ever in the world. So whatever it costs the US government is irrelevant to the US government, because they steal those dollars from us either through taxation or debasement. So there's no downside for the US government. They'll pay whatever it takes to get their 60 tons. And they're under pressure from the military industrial complex to do that, obviously, because we were warned in history, beware of the military industrial complex. They own the US,
So ARK has rhenium for sale, and then outside of that, for a stacker who's looking to enter the market now, what are some of the offerings from ARK that you think would be the best bang for your buck for stackers?
Day to day, we have silver at spot. So we will try and find 10-ounce bars, 1-ounce rounds, kilo bars, 100-ounce bars. What we gets brought in on the secondary market, or what we purchase from other dealers who are swamped with stock, we will pass it on at a nominal personal premium just to enable people to start stacking. So at least they're going to come in ahead by getting at spot, or with 90% constitutional, so the pre-65 dimes, quarters and halves. We're about 70 cents back of spot. So you can actually buy silver that way for less than the spot price.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put the number on screen where you can reach out to Ian, as well as the email address. As I've mentioned many times on this show, I've had nothing but positive feedback from people who have done business with ARK, silver, gold, osmium. I always get comments about it. People say they called you up and you were so accommodative in terms of helping people get the best value for their money. So I highly recommend people reach out to you and, hey, maybe pick up some rhenium. That sounds like a very interesting story to me. Ian, thank you so much once again for coming on the show, and looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you, Jesse, and thank you for all your hard work.
Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.